going to call the meeting to order. Are you ready, Cindy?
Ready.
Okay, so we're going to call the meeting to order. Before we approve the agenda, I just want to go over some details about how this is going to work. We have entered your names in motions, and when I read your names and the motion, if you choose to not be a mover or a seconder, just let me know and we'll ask for someone else to take your place. When it comes to voting, I'm going to ask if there are any no's. If there is a no, then we will record the vote as if it's a recorded vote by asking each one of you how you vote. As I said before, if you want to speak, say your name and I will put you down in the order that I've heard your name. When one person's talking, please wait until they're finished and then you have your turn. In between, you probably want to mute so that any background noises won't be causing an interference. Okay, any questions?
I have a quick question before we start. Can the call-in user 7 identify himself?
Who is call-in user 7?
Just joined.
Andy Dillon.
Okay, thanks, Andy.
Okay. Okay, my first motion is moved by Bill and seconded by Tom that the agenda for the regular council meeting held April the 14th, 2020 be approved as, I believe there are some amendments, Kathy?
There are a couple of amendments. The one you'll notice, and I think Cindy sent it out to you, is the letter from Steve Clark, the Minister of Municipal Affairs. He's added under correspondence 10B. And also to bylaw regarding fireworks is taken off the agenda. We'll look at that bylaw at the next meeting. That's all I have.
Okay, so the motion is to accept the agenda as amended. Any discussion? Anyone voting no? All those in favor? Carried.
Yes.
I don't need to ask that. If I hear no no's, I'm going to say that it's
Right.
approved. Everyone. Okay, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof of any item on today's agenda by any member of council? Hearing nothing, we're going to note that in the minutes. I have a motion moved by Tom Dewey and seconded by Bill McDonald. The minutes of the special council meeting held March 27th, 2020 be approved as presented. Any discussion? Anyone voting no? Motion carried. Mayor's remarks. Just want to say thank you to everybody for staying home and doing what you need to do to keep us all safe, and we will get through this if we continue to work together. Our community's done very well so far, so let's keep it up. Any deferred items?
None.
Okay, we're going to move to staff reports. We have staff on the phone, so if there's any questions, they can answer it. I have a motion moved by Brent Cowdy and seconded by Nikki Gowdy that council received the construction details March 2020 report prepared by the Manager of Development Services, CBO, for information. Any discussion or questions?
This is Tom. I just wanted to say it was a good report, but there's nice to see that there were 4 new residential units started for March. That's quite encouraging.
Excellent.
Madam Mayor, Bill here. To Andy, it shows 4, when you add up the 9 residentials for the year, the rest of the permits all just additions or alternations somewhere.
Yes, Bill. They're either additions or one of them would be the addition on for Matson's gas station. And decks or garages.
Thank you, Andy.
But Andy, should that not have been, sorry, whoever I cut off there, should that not have been shown under commercial?
Well, it's not a new commercial. I guess the building was already there. I could have maybe put it in the commercial column. It's just that it wasn't a new building. It was an addition. That's why I didn't put it as a new commercial.
I would put that, just my opinion. I think it should be because we changed the zoning bylaw to make that property commercial. And I think it probably should be commercial.
Yeah, I can change that.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Madam Mayor, just one for me. This is a bit of a mechanical question, but I'm wondering, in light of everything that's going on, are we looking at any mechanism where we extend the period for permits? I'm not sure whether or not that's necessary, but maybe Andy could speak more at length to that.
Extend the periods for permits.
What I'm thinking is that if
Yeah,
let me explain. If there's a situation where a person has applied for and been granted a permit, but in light of the current situation, the time frame for getting the construction done that the permit would cover gets extended out. Is this a particular issue, or do we have a game plan for those people who can't complete the projects within the specified time period?
right now we have no time limit on the building permits. That's the way it was when I came here. So if that's what you mean, like I know with the KFL&A, their septic permit is only good for a year, where ours, we don't have an expiry date on them.
Okay, and that was my concern, that we were doing something analogous to what they were doing and people would be running the clock. But if that's not the case in this regard, then thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be an issue.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Hearing none. Are there any no's? Motion's carried. Okay. Next, we have Public Works. And I have a motion moved by Bill McDonald and seconded by Sherry Wan, that council approve the recommendation of the Public Works Manager to accept the quote from Cubics Equipment, as they were the lowest quote in the amount of $44,087.54, excluding HST for a brusher. And further, that the Public Works Manager be authorized to proceed to obtain a purchase order for the brusher. Discussion.
It's Tom Fran.
Yes.
Was somebody ahead of me? Well, okay, thank you. Yeah, I support this, Your Worship, but what I'd like to ask Tyson, what's happening with that coring brusher? Has this thing now become a boat anchor?
Mayor, I'm here with, hear me all right?
Yep.
Hey, Madam Mayor, I'm here with Steve, and Steve is here to help with any questions about the brusher because he took the lead on this. But my understanding is that the brusher has reached the end of its service life. It's not safe anymore, and it's going to be evaluated to see if we can patch it up enough to sell it to get any money for it. But at this time, without investing into it, it's pretty much scrap metal, and it's custom to that tractor as well.
I think that thing was scrap metal when we bought it. We never used it much. It was always broke.
Right. Bill?
I might have to clarify something through you, Madam Mayor. Steve made a good point. You may be talking about the Liebherr brusher, the actual our wheel.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
We're referring to one of the brusher mowers that goes onto a tractor.
No. I'm talking about that other piece of equipment. I thought it was a coring brush, whatever that is, a Liebherr. That's it.
Yeah, so we're not talking about that right now. That's still in service.
Okay.
I agree. It's needs to be looked at in the next couple of years here because there has always been issues with it. It is currently in service, working fine right now, though.
Bill, did you have something?
Madam Mayor, to Tyson, a couple of questions. In your report, you said total rentals would be $48,605. Would you just explain what that means? Is that if we did not own a machine, that's what it would cost to provide it? And the second part of my question to you would be, what would be the expected life cycle of this piece of equipment if we purchase it? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to answer Bill's first question, I should have been a little more clear. Total Rentals is a company. I should have wrote LTD behind that. That's a business. So that was just a third quote similar to the other two. I can see the confusion there. As for Bill's second question, we're putting 15 to 20 year. I'm going to talk with Michael about what we want to put into our citywide program, but at the low end, sorry, we're putting a 15-year life cycle on that piece of equipment. Those brushers take a pretty good beating after 15 years. It's the safety devices on them that seem to wear and aren't safe anymore.
Thank you.
Did I hear someone else?
Yes, Madam Mayor, Nikki. Tyson, I'm sorry, Tyson, you said the previous brusher was built for the tractor, the Kubota it's being used on. Is 2008 tractor's already 12 years old. Is the new brusher going to be interchangeable to a different tractor if we have to replace this tractor?
For you, Madam Mayor, I thought I mentioned it in here in the background information, but it's a simple 3-point hitch attachment. The new one, the current brusher is permanently mounted onto the tractor. The new one is a 3-point hitch. You could back up and within minutes you could have a grader attached to the back of it, or a different style mower, or anything else with an interchangeable 3-point hitch attachment.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to call the vote. Is there anyone voting no to this motion? Hearing no no's, it's carried. With Public Works, I have a motion moved by Cindy Kelsey and seconded by Tom Dewey. Council approved the recommendation of the Public Works Manager to proceed with the RFP for the surveying of 3 sections of roadway that were pulverized in 2019 on Henderson, Arden, and Oak Flats Road. And further, that the Public Works Manager be authorized to begin advertising the same. Discussion.
Madam Mayor, it's Brent here. I just have a quick question. We did say, and it says in the motion, or at least the background, that we approved this for resurfacing in 2020. I'm just wondering, are we confident that we would be able to complete everything, including the resurfacing this year?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, we're not confident. All of our contracts are at risk right now for deferral to another year if the situation doesn't get any better soon. But this is a small portion of that, and I've spoken with multiple consulting firms who have been deemed essential services if called upon by government agencies. So this small portion of the project, it could be completed right now, and if it had to sit on the shelf for another year, it could.
Your Worship, it's Tom. Tyson, with regards to this, I totally agree with going ahead with the RFP for the surveying and engineering. But as the summer progressed, I was wondering what you thought about if you would get somewhere back to normal, issuing an RFP for the construction of the road. Even though we will not finish it this year, a lot of that preliminary work could be done in 2020 because people are going to want to get back to work. So what is your thoughts on that, and let them finish the rest of it in 2021, depending on how this goes this summer?
Madam Mayor, absolutely, Tom. That's what I am doing. Just even by submitting the request to move forward with this RFP, I'm trying to get as much of these projects done as possible, what we can do. And absolutely, if the situation gets better, we could stage the project. We could get all the culvert replacement stitching done and then resurface in 2021 if we had to split it up that way. It's not preferred, but the main thing is I've been in contact with the lawyers and wording these contracts to make sure that the contractors don't come after the township for delay claims due to COVID-19. And they've provided some more robust language to protect us against stuff like that. Now, unfortunately, what that will do is possibly drive the prices up for this work as well. So it's all stuff that we're going to be, we're not going to rush into, and we're going to do what we can. And that's all we can do right now.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Excellent. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none. Is there anyone voting no to this motion? Hearing none, motion's carried. Okay. Public Works Activity Report. I have a motion moved by Victor and seconded by Elwin. The council received the Public Works Activity Report as prepared by the Public Works Manager dated April 14th, 2020 for information. Any questions or comments on the report? Being none, anybody voting against this motion? Carried. That's it for Tyson. Tyson. Okay, I have a motion moved by Victor and seconded by Brent. Whereas Kingston Fire and Rescue currently maintains certain equipment, resources, and personnel for receiving and dispatching emergency service calls for Central Frontenac Fire and Emergency Services, and further that Central Frontenac Fire and Emergency Services is requesting that we continue to contract for the provision of certain dispatch and communication services from Kingston's Municipal Fire Department for Central Frontenac's Municipal Fire Department. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council support the recommendation of the acting manager of emergency services / fire chief to accept the amended fire service dispatch agreement with Kingston Fire and Rescue, and further that council approve the chief administrative officer / clerk and the mayor to execute the agreement on behalf of the municipality. Questions or comments?
Madam Mayor, Bill here.
Bill and then Brent.
I just wondered if Jamie would give me a little bit of insight into the revisions in regard to including the wording using the third-party volunteer firefighter response management application and who's who. Perhaps enlighten me a little bit. I'm a little in the dark on what that means.
We'll do it through you, Madam Mayor. The third-party firefighter application is the system that we also use, who's responding. When a call comes through our dispatch, it actually gets paged out. It comes across our phones as well. It's an added tool that we have, and they just wanted the wording of using this in their agreement, and any implications as far as troubles with the app, that they weren't liable.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Brent?
I have a question, and I have a question too, so just for Jamie. Jamie, is that like who's responding?
Yes, that's exactly, it's who's responding, yep.
Okay, now Brent?
No worries, because I had two questions. One was Bill's and one was covered by the explanation that Jamie gave, so I'm good.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it's Nikki.
Okay.
I was under the impression that a lot of the fire stuff was on hold till the other report came back in June. Could anybody clarify that for me, please?
I think with this, the call-in service, and it's a contract, this part wouldn't change.
That's
Right.
correct, it wouldn't.
So then I have a second part question then. Jamie, does the communications cover the whole township?
Through you, Madam Mayor, and yes, the communications does cover the entire township. We did, as you're aware, we did move the repeater last fall because of some issues with the site that it was at and downtime. And
I'm just speaking as a personal thing. The fire department had to attend my residence on Sunday, and they couldn't. The firefighters couldn't communicate, and they stressed that it was just a bad spot at the south end of the township.
Okay, well, I can.
Maybe you just might want to talk to the city about it a bit, I guess.
Yeah, I was actually like responding to that, and I didn't hear any hiccups in the communication. So.
Well, the first firefighter that arrived on site could not stand anybody down because none of their equipment would work to stand anybody down.
But that wouldn't be the Kingston Fire Dispatch, would it? That would be our own radio system. Is that?
I'll discuss that with District Chief Quinn and do a follow up. But from the information that I know and heard over the radio, the communication was there.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, is there anyone voting no? Okay, motion is carried. Right. I have a motion moved by Sherry Warren and seconded by Tom Dewey. Whereas the vehicles at our substations located on Henderson Road and Oak Flats Road were taken out of service in 2017 due to overall weight issues and have not been used in an active status since. And whereas the acting manager of emergency services / fire chief is proposing these units to be retrofitted to a medical response and scene support unit in their new response roles. And whereas these retrofit units replace 2 aging support units at Station 1 and Station 2. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council support the recommendation of the acting manager of emergency services / fire chief to repurpose the 2 emergency response units from the substations and redeploy them to Station 1 and 2 as outlined in the report. Discussion.
Madam Mayor, it's Brent. Just a quick question. Maybe a clarification. I remember at the time when this weight issue came up, the intention at that time, and forgive me if I'm getting this wrong, I thought that we were going to do what it took to retrofit them for medical calls. I thought this was something that had been addressed at the time. Maybe my recollection is different on this, but at the time we had said that the weight issue precluded those units from being used in a traditional sense and that they would be able to be used for medical calls. Just some clarification on that.
Yep. So through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Cameron, in the discussions, if my notes, if I took my notes correctly, is that was one of the options that that we were going to explore when bringing these units back into service, and that is the intention with this new role, as well as with the retrofit units that I'd like to put on these. It will serve more than just medical response. It will hold support equipment for calls. And the extra equipment for, like for instance, hazmat response, we'll have our pads and our spill kits and on these as well. Additional air bottles for house fires. So, and it will eliminate, as it says in the report, by three aging units that we have. in place of 2.
So the work just didn't get done last time.
No, so there's both units still have the overweight units on them, which are will be scheduled to take off in the next couple of weeks if this is approved. I'm still working out, or I will work with the contractor that will be putting the retrofitted units on a time where I can have the units delivered to him and the changes made.
That answer your question, Brent?
I think so. Thank you.
Any other question or comments?
Yes, it's Nikki, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Chief Riddell, what units are you replacing in the Henderson Hall and the Piccadilly Hall if you're taking these units out of?
Through you, Madam Mayor, at this time, we're not replacing the units at those 2 halls. One reason is staffing numbers at those halls right now. The Oaks Flats Hall has 1 person at it through the winter months, and that person is if they haven't left already, will be leaving shortly for their summer employment. And the Henderson Hall only has 1 person, and because of shift or working schedules is not there all the time, and to have those units in their new roles at a master station, it allows us to have a better response and more, the equipment more readily available to a response than having to send people out to the substations if somebody's not responding to that.
One other question, if possible. Parham Station has been using the Piccadilly Hall as a response vehicle, and it was used recently at the fire in Titchburn. Will they be short-staffed of a truck by taking this and repurposing it and moving it to Mountain Grove?
No, through you, Madam Mayor, the Councillor Gowdy. No, the pick truck was actually moved just I think it's a month and a half ago due to a furnace issue. We moved it to the Parham Station, and at a couple of the calls it's gone to as a support unit just to help with shuttling bottles back and forth to Sharp Lake to be refilled, and support bringing ATVs or the lighting units. So, but which with the current squad at Parham Station, that squad can also do all of that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Is anyone voting no to the motion?
Nikki.
Okay, we're going to do a recorded vote. Nikki is no. Cindy Kelsey.
Yes.
Bill McDonald.
Yes.
Brent Cameron.
No.
Tom Dewey.
Yes.
Victor.
Yes.
Harry Wan.
Yes.
Elwin Burke.
No.
And myself, yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 to 2, it's carried.
That was 3 no's.
Sorry.
Brent,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Brent, Nikki, and Elwin.
to 3, right?
That's right.
My one N looked like a Y, sorry. All right, let's move on. We have a motion moved by Nikki Gowdy, seconded by Elwin Burke, that council receive the report entitled Amendment to the Fireworks Bylaw as prepared by the Acting Manager of Emergency Services / Fire Chief for discussion purposes, and further that the fireworks bylaw be brought back to council at the next meeting dated April 29th, 2020. Discussion? Maybe, Jamie, you could mention why we're bringing this back.
Yep. Through you, Madam Mayor, just the, with some of the revisions that we have in the fireworks bylaw, may have implications on other bylaws. So Cindy is just verifying that before we bring it formally. And it was just brought to our attention this morning that we need to look at it a little bit more in depth before we get a final presentation to council. So that's why we're going to put it off till next meeting.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, Bill here.
Go ahead.
Amy, explain to me what a Chinese lantern is.
I'm not the only one that didn't know that.
Yes, no, so a Chinese lantern is a little candle inside a paper mache or paper object, yeah, and it
Like a
lights
bag.
up, and the heat allows it to rise and travel with the air.
That's right. They were very popular around last summer and they caused lots of problems. Yeah.
Okay, Madam Mayor. Hey, Jamie.
Any other questions or comments? Anybody voting no? Hearing nothing, carried. Next, we have a motion moved by Cindy Kelsey and seconded by Sherry Wan. The council approved the recommendation of the acting manager. We got to shorten this title. Acting manager of emergency services / fire chief to accept the quote from LD Sports as they were the lowest quote for a 2020 Arctic Cat ATV and trailer in the amount of $15,949 excluding HST, and further that the acting manager of emergency services / fire chief be authorized to proceed to obtain a purchase order for the ATV and trailer. Discussion.
Madam Mayor, it's Brent here. Can I just ask a quick question? Maybe Jamie could explain to everybody what the typical use for this unit would be, the kind of responses that the fire department would require an ATV for.
Okay, Jamie?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Cameron, the ATVs are used for a number of different response options. We use them for in our wildfire season for transporting not only equipment and supplies into fire grounds, but we use them in the tracking of the fires and the transportation of people in and out. We use them in the wintertime for assistance with snowmobile accidents or ice water rescue type calls. If we have to go down into an area where we can't get our support units into.
It's Tom, Your Worship. Oh, I didn't know if you. Jamie, I just quick question. I fully support you doing this. Couldn't understand why they would buy a two-wheel to start with. But my question is what are we going to do with the current two-wheel machine and trade it in or sell it?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Dewey, I think the state that the current units in the four-wheel drive is not working properly in it, and so we'll probably just advertise it to try and get what we can for it, and I don't think it's well, the two of them weren't even interested in a trade-in, so.
Right, okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
It's Nikki, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Chief Riddell, if the other three stations have one, and we're all responding together, is there a really high need to have a fourth?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Gowdy, in previous history and season like we had even 3 years or last year, where we had all three four-wheeler, we had three of the four four-wheelers out at one call doing variety of different responses and supplying stuff. So the need for one at each station is apparent. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Anybody voting no? Motion carried. Okay. All right, we have a motion moved by Bill McDonald and seconded by Victor Hayes. Whereas Central Frontenac Fire and Emergency Services schedule for vehicle replacement outlines the replacement for 2 pumpers over the 2021 and 2022 calendar year. And whereas the acting manager emergency services fire chief has extensively reviewed the fire service vehicle replacement schedule. And whereas council support the recommendation of the acting manager emergency services / fire chief, authorize an RFP for the replacement of pumper 421, 2021 and P431, 2022, as per the fire services vehicle replacement schedule. Now therefore it be it resolved that council support option 1 to advertise for 2 pumpers over the next 2 years, being with build times that are at least 12 months for delivery, and the second pumper secured to have in service to meet our capital replacement requirements, and thus allowing for the purchases within 2021 and 2022 budget years. I'm going to ask Jamie to speak to this because there has been some change.
Right, right.
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. Since putting the report in to be on the council agenda for today, I have spent some time to look at other options that could be available for us, because I'll be honest, it doesn't even sit well with myself that we're placing 4 pumpers in over 4 years.
Sorry, I lost them.
Oh, you there, Tom?
Yeah, I lost you there for a minute.
Okay.
Okay, you're back.
In talking with actually our contractor with our tanker and seeing where we were with timelines, and although they're not affected, suppliers are starting to be affected as far as getting the material to them, and so it could end up pushing our delivery dates back a little further. So I looked at this past weekend at ways that we could do our vehicle replacements and accomplish 2 things. And one was to get us on a proper replacement cycle going forward so that we're not replacing 4 pumpers over 4 years. And 2, that we can do it in a way that doesn't raise any red flags with the Insurance Underwriters Association. So, in doing that, they're asked and presented Kathy with kind of an updated request, which will still ask for 1 RFP for 1 new pumper for 2021, and look at 2 used pumpers over to bridge us over the gap to get us to 2024, and use those used pumpers to offset the pumpers as we get the next one to RFP. So the end result would be in 2032, we would actually finish our current pumper replacement, and then that sets us in line for the new replacement to start in 2040, and then 4 years, another one. So every 4 years going forward, would be the new pumper replacement.
So council wants to look at that option. We'll discuss it a little more, but if a process is we would need to defeat this motion and then look at an amended motion to do what Jamie is saying, which is buying the used equipment. Okay, let's open it for discussion and questions.
Madam Mayor, Bill here. You to Jamie, I'm just wondering if we could give us some idea of what we're looking at in dollars and cents in these vehicles. And just as a follow-up from your knowledge and connections with the fire marshal's office, are there any expectations, given what's going on in the world today and how that's affecting manufacturers and supply of material? Is there any chance that the guidelines in regard to serviceability of these equipment can be changed from what they're recommending, say a 20 life cycle to say a 25 life cycle, and that would be determined by the number of hours on the vehicle? Could you give us this? I know that's a question, but maybe give us a synopsis in those around what I've been thinking about. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor McDonald. No, and your questions are valid questions, and it's questions that I know, especially the smaller rural municipalities have asked, a number of times. Is just that, is look at extending, the 20-year rule to maybe 25 or even 30 because of the amount of hours and the amount of hours on the pumps themselves are so low. And to date, they're still stuck with the 20. And yes, I would hope under the circumstances that we're under that, even if we do the RFP and we go over, 21, 22 years, that the insurance underwriters would, show some flexibility, I guess is the word. But we until we get an official word from them on any of that possible flexibility, we need to try to stay as best we can in line with what the regulations tell us.
Madam Mayor, I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so given the fact, the reality is that these pumpers have a lifespan of 20 years. That's the benchmark. And maybe that will change, maybe it won't. But if we take that for a given, I guess it begs the question, what would be the minimum age of a piece of equipment that we would be looking at, given the fact that we're going to still want to get as much life out of it as possible. So would we be looking at something no older than 5 years, for example? And as well as that, what would be the availability? Is there a market where fairly low age, low volume equipment would be available for a good cost?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Cameron. Yeah, the market is very thin on used equipment. I would like to stay, within the 5 to 10 year mark as far as any type of used unit. Anything over the 10-year mark wouldn't fit the model that we're trying to achieve as far as the use of the two used units cycling through to the different stations waiting for their replacement to come due. And it's just being at, a lot of it is being at the right place, the right site, the right time, and being able to, get the bid in and get it secured. I do have, there's 3 or 4 sites that we're monitoring quite closely to try and get an idea of pricing and and availability, and depending on which option the council approves, the sell, the pick and sell of a unit will have to happen really quick, and to get the secure of that unit.
Right. I just sorry, I have a quick follow-up on that.
Yep.
I'm just wondering what our red line will be. I'll give you a case in point. We know more or less what the cost of a brand new unit would be, and we know that it'd be amortized over 20 years. Are there red lines? For example, if we buy a pumper that's 10 years old, it's used 50% of its life. But if we're paying 60 to 65% of the price of a new unit, but only getting 50% of the lifespan, I'm just wondering, do we have the luxury of having some choice in the matter, or will we end up paying a slight premium?
Through you, Madam Mayor, my goal through this is to work within the parameters of what we were aiming for as far as the new unit replacements. So the two new pumpers, looking at the pricing, it's around $400 to $450 for a new pumper. So my goal and my intention is these two used units between the year and what's available is to keep both of those under that mark and not go over that mark.
Okay, thank you.
Your Worship, it's Tom.
Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. Yeah, Jamie and I spoke this afternoon, and I liked his option 3. We talked about that a little bit, and I'd like to see that coming back to council for their decision. And so I think I would definitely agree with deferring this until Jamie puts all those numbers together, because I think that what we're talking about is very attractive, and that would get us over the next hurdle and extend out those trucks we have now, and we would be in compliance until 2032 or whatever. But I think I'd like to see that option 3.
Okay, we have another motion coming up. We'll speak to that instead of a deferral. What we need to do is, if we're not going to buy brand new, which is what the motion is that I read, we need to defeat that motion. And then I have a further motion you can discuss about buying used. Is that clear?
Madam Mayor, Bill here. I would, before we went to the used part, I would like to see the numbers on what we're talking about with the new material. And then perhaps Jamie could put both of those together to show us, for example, what the new ones are going to cost and approximately, and what a used one might cost, just so that we might do a little bit of a comparison there.
We budgeted 400,000 unit. So we have that number.
Right.
And as far as,
sorry, but we don't know that's what this going to cost, though.
it's going to be at least 400,000 or more.
The more part that bothers me.
Just to help clarify Councillor McDonald's question, Mayor, the 400,000 is been pretty consistent over the past 6 months from the units that I've seen going for tender and being awarded.
So that's certain stuff.
It's pretty close to the trucks that are similar to the one that we're proposing for RFP. Of course, with the times that we're in now, there may be a little bit of fluctuality there as supply and demand. So again, the RFP will tell us what the new numbers are. But I'm pretty confident staying under the half price point in the units that we're looking for. Yes.
Okay, I'm happy.
Okay. Any other comments?
Your worship, just for clarification, if we defeat this motion, the intent is to buy one new vehicle, correct? And then look at the option of getting two used ones to get us out there for a longer period of time. Is that not correct?
That's correct. So the new proposal would be to continue with the new unit for 2021 and the RFP, and the two used units to bridge us and help us work through the next stages so that we stay compliant as far as the insurance underwriters are concerned. So it will involve a shuffling of the used bumpers from around the three different stations, but it'll keep us in compliance.
So we have to defeat this motion. Okay.
And those items are in the next motion that's coming up.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. Further discussion? So who's voting no?
No.
No.
I mean,
No.
a no to defeat this?
Yes.
Sorry.
To defeat.
No,
Okay, so
Bill.
no for
Oh,
Tom?
yeah. Yes, to defeat it, yeah.
Okay. Let me go name by name. Victor.
No.
Okay. Brent.
No.
Vicky.
No.
Sherry. Elwin.
No.
Cindy.
No.
Bill.
No.
And myself, no, it's defeated. All right. Now, here's the other motion. Moved by Tom Dewey, seconded by Brent Cameron. As Central Frontenac Fire and Rescue Services schedule for vehicle replacement outlines the replacement of two pumpers over the 2021 and 2022 calendar year. And whereas the acting manager of emergency services / fire chief has been reviewing the fire service vehicle replacement schedule in great detail and has been exploring two options. And whereas the acting manager of emergency services / fire chief is recommending to council that we go forward and purchase one new pumper to replace pumper 421 in 2021 and to purchase up to two used pumpers so that it puts us in a better position to extend our capital fleet replacement program. Therefore, be it resolved that council authorize the acting manager of emergency services / fire chief to go forward with an RFP to replace pumper 421 and to secure the purchase of up to two used pumpers to an upset limit not to exceed 800,000, which may include the purchase in 2020. Discussion.
It's already happened, Madam Mayor.
Okay, that's great.
I-
Is anybody saying no? Motion carried. All right, move on. I think that's it for fire. Yes.
I have a quick question.
Yeah,
Sorry, Madam Mayor.
sure.
Just for Chief Riddell. Not regarding the previous.
A little louder, Sherry.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
That's better.
Chief Riddell, just a question regarding burn permits. I recognize that there's a complete fire ban on right now, but I was just curious as to when things resume to some sort of sense of normalcy. Just as there was a lot of discussion around burn barrels last year, is there a way that we could send out some kind of a hand permits around burning barrels and what is acceptable? Because I know, myself included, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what is permitted to be burned in a burn barrel.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Juan, I think what I hope to do is at the next council meeting, along with the fireworks bylaws, to bring a revision to our burn bylaw, and we'll have some proposed changes to our burn bylaw. But in the meantime, yeah, we can definitely get communique up on our website on what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and look at maybe even sending it out to the residents and with our next tax insert.
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, I have a motion moved by Sherry Wan and seconded by Bill McDonald that council approve the check distribution reports totaling $664,381.89 as prepared by the treasurer. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Is anybody voting no? Motion carried. Moved by Tom Dewey, seconded by Cindy Kelsey, that council approve the following apportionments of assessment as recommended by impact for 2019 and 2020 as applicable for the following roll numbers, and there are 3 of them. They're on your screen. Any questions or comments? Is anyone voting no? Carried. Motion moved by Victor Hayes and seconded by Owen Burke that council accept the investment report as prepared by the treasurer for information. Any discussion or comment or questions?
I have a couple comments, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Just looked at the investments today, which is one handy thing being at my desk, and our investments have actually increased another 12,000 since the end of the year. We would have made about $36,000 in interest in the bank, and our investment has increased by $64,000 since we put the money in. So at least we're not double, but we're close to it. So it was a great move.
Excellent.
Good. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Michael, I'm just wondering, Bill here, present investment environment we're dealing with here in regard to crashing stock markets and all, do you anticipate a change in that trajectory of our investments over the next short while?
You, Madam Mayor, Councilor McDonald, I'm no investment expert, never portrayed myself to be, but what I would expect is for things to slowly get up. One investment put out an article with 10 different questions and points and basically said, stay the course. If you have the right mix of investments, it will be fine. We'll get through it. So that's why I checked the value today and pleasantly surprised to see that it's up. They did comment that the 2 investment categories that we are in are the ones that have seen an increase based on everything going on, and it's the equity market that has actually seen a decrease. That being said, the equity market is normally one of the best returns, and so therefore I wouldn't mind trying to invest a small amount of money. So normally in the budget we're putting $60,000 into into reserves as an increase, and that is to be invested in the investment market. So what I'd like to do is put that $60,000 into equity this year, go through the year and see how it goes. But in light of current economic conditions, I wouldn't mind talking to Keith at the one investment firm first and just getting his thoughts on that before we move forward with it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome, Councillor.
Any other questions or comments? None. Anyone voting no? Motion's carried.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Michael. Brent and seconded by Nikki that council accept the report entitled COVID-19 Update as prepared by the management team for information. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Does anyone vote no? Motion carried. Moved by Bill McDonald, seconded by Sherry Wan, that council receive the Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance meeting minutes dated February the 13th, 2020 for information. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Does anyone vote no? Motion carried. Moved by Tom Dewey, seconded by Cindy Kelsey. Council received the Charlotte Lake Farmers Market meeting minutes dated February the 16th, 2020, as well as their 2019 report. Discussion.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I thought it was really quite an in-depth report. Hopefully, their work this coming summer actually can go ahead with our support. Thank you.
I guess the question for Vic, they certainly wouldn't be a necessary service, but have they been discussing the whole isolating and whether or not the market will open? They usually open what, the long weekend in May?
Yeah.
Councillor Hayes?
I don't think he's on.
Okay, he was. We must have lost him. You're right. Anyhow, that's something I can bring up with Victor. I'm sure they've thought about it and they're just waiting it out. Anybody voting no to that motion? Hearing none, carried. I have a motion moved by Nikki and seconded by Brent that council receive the following correspondence for information, and they're 1 to 12 as listed. Any discussion? Anyone voting no?
We lose you, Madam Mayor?
Yeah, I lost sound here. Yeah, I hear Bill. You can always hear.
Hear you, Tom.
I'm still here as well.
Just Fran, I'd lost.
Let's just,
Brent.
why don't we just continue the meeting then?
I hear Brent. It sounds like it's just in the office that's cut off. Is Kathy there?
Yeah, just a second. I just went to get her. She was in Andy's office, so here she is.
Oh,
Now, the motion is moved by Bill and seconded by Tom that council received the letter from Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, for information. This is a letter that we've asked Joe and Megan to give us some clarification about just what it means for our Committee of Adjustment meetings and whether or not severances and minor variances can be dealt with. So,
okay.
any questions or comments? Is anyone voting no? Motion carried.
Cindy, I just noticed that Victor has come back online.
Okay.
That's good. Here's mine.
Okay,
Here's mine.
are there any notices of motion? Any giving of notices of motion? Good thing I got this memorized. Eh?
No public meetings.
No public meetings?
We're ready to do.
Was that Cindy? Okay. We only have the confirming
Committee
bylaw.
bylaw. Yep, that's
All
it.
right. If there's nothing else to come before council, does anyone have anything? Nothing. I have a motion moved by Nikki and seconded by Elwin. That bylaw 2020-22 being a bylaw to confirm the regular council meetings held April 14th, 2020 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 14th day of April 2020. And further, this meeting be adjourned until 4 p.m. April the 28th, 2020 at the municipal office, Elizabeth Street, Charlotte Lake. Anyone voting no? Motion carried.
I am going to stop the recording of the meeting at this time.
Okay. Have a good day, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.